It is a journey through the Bible with Mukhwana Isaac. I want to thank you for always journeying, moving with me, and of course studying the word of the Lord. Yesterday we looked at the Paschal meal where the Israelites were commanded by Moses to prepare a meal, to smear blood on the doorposts. Reason being, it was time for them to leave, and God was about to bring in that last plague to destroy the Egyptians, their firstborns, including animals. They succumbed to that. And so God passed over the buildings of the Israelites. But for the Egyptians, he passed through and he killed them. Now, today we look at the departure from Egypt. I am Juan Isaac. It is a journey through the Bible. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. The last plague frightened the Egyptians so much that the Israelites were allowed to leave. The Bible says that the last plague was the death of the firstborn. Whether this was so or not is not certain. But we must remember the aim of the writer. The writer wants to say that it was God's great power that brought the Israelites out of Egypt. It is quite possible that the death of the firstborn was simply a story to say that God did something very special, extraordinary in taking the Israelites out of Egypt. The important thing to draw from the stories of the plagues is that by an extraordinary number of great happenings following one after another, God freed his people from Egypt under Moses' leadership. Even though these things happen, actually these happenings were natural things, yet they were clearly used by God to carry out his plan. The Israelites left immediately after this last great event. This going out is called the Exodus. The going out of Egypt, leaving Egypt, is called Exodus, and that is where the name of the book of Exodus, the second book of the Old Testament, was derived. Departure, Exodus. In Exodus chapter 11 verse 2 and 3 and chapter 12 verse 35 to 36, we read of how God told the Israelites before leaving Egypt to ask their Egyptian neighbors for gold, silver, and clothing. The Egyptians let them have many things, but the Israelites did not intend to return them. It might seem to be unjust to us, but we should try to understand it in their times. The Egyptian nation had made the Israelites work for them without pay, and so the Israelites had a right to be paid by the nation. Even though they took the things of individual families, we must remember that in those days, people thought primarily of the nation rather than of the family. And so in taking the things of the nation, of the families, the Israelites were taking the things of the nation which belonged to them. The Israelites had to leave their homes and belongings in Egypt. The money and the riches which they got from the Egyptians were part payment for the things they left behind. Now, we would not think that this was the right thing to do, but we live in Christian times when our consciences are enlightened by Christian justice. God commanded the Israelites to set apart for him the firstborn child in their families as a remembrance of the saving of Israel from Egypt after death of the firstborn among Egyptians. Chapter 13, verse 11 to 17. And so the shortest way into Canaan was northeast along the Mediterranean coast route. But there were many Egyptian soldiers along this road. So the Israelites went southwards towards the mountain where God was waiting to make them officially his own people. The mountain of Horeb, where God had appeared to Moses in the burning bush. God guided them by day in a pillar of cloud, by night in a pillar of fire. But freedom from fear of Egyptian rule came only after crossing the Red Sea. Soon after their departure, Pharaoh changed his mind and sent soldiers to bring the Israelites back. Just when the situation became dangerous for the Israelites and seemed to be hopeless, God acted to save his people. Moses led the Israelites to a part of the Red Sea. It was wrongly translated the Red Sea in the Greek translation in the Bible, which was narrow and which could easily be crossed when the wind blew strongly from the east and made the tide low. In fact, a strong wind blew all night. Exodus chapter 14 verse 21. And the water was forced back on both sides so that the Israelites were able to cross safely. The Egyptian soldiers followed but were caught when the waters flowed back with force once the wind had died down. This story is about divine help given to the Israelites at a dangerous moment when their departure from Egypt seemed condemned to failure. It appears that God used natural forces, the east wind blowing all night, yes, to save his people. And so the Bible makes it quite clear that there certainly was divine help. For instance, God told Moses to lift his rod to divide the waters, and the Egyptians feared the Israelites, for the Lord fights for them. Chapter 14 verse 25. It is not important, therefore, for some parts of the Exodus account where stories made up by narrators and writers. God freed his people. That is the most important thing. And Israel saw the great work which the Lord did against the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in the servant of the Lord, Moses. Chapter 14, verse 31. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Tomorrow we shall look at the importance of the Exodus in the history of salvation. I have been Mukhwana Isaac with the journey through the Bible. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Be blessed.